So gang, basically when you last saw us, we were moulding this stag and we're taking the mould off of the concrete stag or the cast stag or whatever it's made out of. These are the different sections of all of that piece. And what we've done is we waxed up each section and we bolted the base together. And this morning, I actually took all of the pieces off and now I'm left with this like hollow wax base. And my job now is to just go along all these seam lines. And what's really nice about this wax is it's slightly chewy and so it's not brittle. So it's actually quite strong wax. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over with a tool and I'm going to clean up all these edges. And once they're all clean, I'm then going to cut this up into sections. I could have cast each section as is, but what I wanted to do was give myself a decent foundation and know that at least then everything's level and I can now cut this up into sections, cast it separately and then TIG weld everything together and then fettle those weld lines back. But at least now I know that it's all gone together and it actually looks relatively decent. It won't take me too long to fettle this back. When Lisa next comes in, we'll work on it together and make this look really, really nice and get it ready for mounting. And talking of mounting, I'm going to show you what we've been doing over there on the actual stag itself and all those different panels that we moulded. So this is just one of the panels that I mounted the other day. Put the runners and risers on the whole system. So I'll just show you to start off with. This is how it's meant to look when it's finished. This here is one section and I still need to add a layer of wax. I still need to add a layer of wax to this panel. They need to get a bit thicker than this. If you look here, this is a really nice thickness. I'd say it's just under 5mm. This here is probably 2. So we need to add a few more layers to give this the rigidity. And what I've done is I've actually mounted this whole section inside of its jacket. And the reason for this is because if I was to take this out beforehand and I'm adding a hot spatula and I'm moving it about, there is a very high risk of it actually warping so that when I do put it in the shell room, it will always stay that shape. And then what you'd have to do is get the persuader out and start bashing the living daylights out of it to try and make it exactly how it's meant to be. So to give it a good chance of actually holding its form, we keep doing it in the jacket. So it's actually all stable. And what I can do is just lift it out, fettle the outside, rest it on a pillow. But actually, I think it looks quite a nice design. So the idea is the bronze is going to travel down here and then it's going to shoot out into all these different gates. And then it's going to go into this pattern. So once the shell's been made, that will then go in a kiln and then all of this wax will burn away, leaving all of these shapes but hollow in the ceramic. So that's what's been going on in those. And we've been doing 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got one panel down here that we still need to do a layer up. We've got the head behind you. I mean, this thing's monstrous, the size of this. What we can do now is actually unbolt this bad boy and see how it turned out. I'll just go get the drill.
Hang on.
Yeah! Rock on, baby! Can I take it off now?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. That'd be quite heavy, man. It's because I'm worth it. Let's get the drill. A little bit of Monica in my life. Oh, so we've got the drill. Saves doing it by hand. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna, oh, lordy lord. This thing, lifesaver. For those of you who've been doing it by hand, you're fools, I told you, fools. I was today years old, knowing that this little adapter existed. So, all the bolts are out. Now it is the test to see whether or not the wax has stood the test of time. So that bit pops off, this bit pops off, this section pops off, and this bit also pops off. Just do the front first. Oh, look at that. Beautiful wax. Now this, guys, looks like an amazing cast. Brushed in really well. I always find the key is not to actually do the moulds up too tight, because if you're just laying up wax and brushing in, you don't have to do it up so tight. If you're pouring the thing solid, then yeah, it needs to be done up tight. But the fact that it's so light, nothing's going to be leaking. You literally only have to do it up finger tight, because you're only wanting the two ends to touch. And on the inside, I've brushed in over the seam line. As you can see, it's two totally different colours. And so that tells me that all of this seam has been connected. And that's a really lovely cast. I'm super pleased with how that's turned out. I'm just going to take that top bit off. And that's come out really, really nicely. And again, I'm just going to go around and I'm going to clean up all these seams with a bit of white spirit, some heat, and maybe just a kitchen knife and some sculpting tools. I'm just going to rest so it doesn't. Just going to rest him on there, just so he doesn't break. Oops. Pop the back off there. Beautiful, beautiful, mate, beautiful. And look at that. Oh, now that is perfection. Oh. Put your head in there, you can hear the sea. Right, now that, oh, super pleased with how that's turned out. Voila! Amazing. Well, I think my time now is to get the tools out and start fettling. So, to start fettling this whole piece, I am going to be just heating up this little spatula here. You can use a Bunsen burner, which most people do. You can just wire it through your table and have it sat on the side. All I'm going to do is just slightly heat this up. I'm going to run it over the seam line very gently, just taking it back to the surface. Any more that I need to do, I can just take it back to the little sculpting tool. So if I just run this, because what you don't want to do is start taking away some of the detail that's already there. Our job is literally to clean it up and then obviously fix any discrepancies that may have been caused from the casting. But thankfully this cast has actually come out really, really well, and there's not actually that much to do on it. So what I'm doing is just going over with a little bit of a hot knife and then going over it again with this sculpting tool. They're like dentist sculpting tools, and you can just go over it then and put these textures back into it. So the idea is that you're looking at the textures that are on the surface of the sculpture, and then you're just going over it with the tool, and then you can then add a little bit of white spirit. And I've got a bit of white spirit in the little lid here, and I just dip the tool inside of that white spirit, and I go over it, and it just takes down the wax, and it makes it nice and smooth, and you can slowly start taking that down so those seam lines just disappear, so that when you do cast it in bronze, hopefully you won't be able to see where we've been working with the tools. it's been fettled and we've gone over the seam lines and we've used what we call patching wax or microcrystalline wax or like a bees wax, something a little bit softer and less sticky than this slush casting wax. We take it all down, and any sort of lumps and bumps that we find that we need to just sort of fill or cover the seam lines with, we can then go over it with that and then put the textures back in that we've replicated that are on the actual surface of the actual sculpture. But in order for us to cast this piece, unfortunately I haven't got a crucible that will just pour this whole thing in one go. But what we will do is we will cut it into sections. So for example, I would cut the nose off here and I'll remove that. I would then mount it up the same as I have done with these down here, and I'll also cut off the ears as well. So the ears will be cast separately, the nose will be cast separately, and then what that's done, it's allowed me to have this mass, which is a good amount of mass to be casting in one go. And then so I would only have 1, 2, 3 welds to be taken care of, and obviously all the chasing and the fettling that's required to get all the sort of nooks and crannies and all the discrepancies and some of the pips that occur when casting. We do get them, and so once all that's been done, we can weld it all together, and then once the base has been cast, we can then start building up from the ankles, then to the main body, then we'll go to the neck, and then finally we'll whack the head on. It's going to look absolutely amazing, guys. But for this episode, I think that's all we've got time for today. We've been doing the fettling. I'm going to crack on with some more of that. For the next episode, we're going to be doing more waxing up. We're just going to get ready to cast in bronze, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to look amazing. Until then, see you then.